This episode is all about Risk Management 101. I'm a risk manager. As a risk manager, I am responsible for managing the risk to my organization and employees. I have to identify and assess threats to an organization to avoid, reduce, or transfer risk. The first step in risk management is the identification of potential risk. This first step is useful in the mitigation of risk. This time, I am responsible of embedding you about the process of identifying risk. What could possibly go wrong? Risk involves uncertainty about the effects or implications of an activity with respect to something that humans value, often focusing on negative, undesirable consequences. Risk is the probability of loss or uncertainty of an outcome. There is always a possibility of deviation from every situation. The desired outcome for a particular event is threatened or influenced by some risk. So there are two related terms of risk, which are the peril and hazard. Hazard refers to a potential source of harm, whereas peril refers to the pitfall of a hazard. It takes off the list of the dangers that a group of people, assets, or an individual may encounter upon contact with an exposed hazard. For example, a contact with exposed live wire hanging on the street may endanger the lives of people due to electric shocks, explosions, or overloading circuits. Exposed live wire is considered and categorized as a safety hazard, whereas electric shocks, explosions, and overloading circuits are the perils. What are the types of hazards? There are three major types of hazards: the physical hazard, moral hazard, and moral hazard. Physical hazards refer to the physical danger of a risk. The risk deviates a condition or event physically. Take, for example, an attended machine may inflict exposure to radiation and heat that affects the physical condition of an individual. Next is the moral hazard. It is as a result of the reckless action or misleading information of an insured party being complacent and knowing that he or she is already insured with compensation. An example situation of moral hazard is when a business owner compensates sales personnel with a set salary, knowing that his or her salary is not based on performance or sales earning. A specific salesperson intended to put in less effort or take longer breaks. And last is the moral hazard. It refers to the outcome of the attitude of a person or a party knowing that they are under the protection of insurance. Cite an example of a business owner that tends to be careless and complacent about his assets' safety, knowing that it is protected by an insurance policy. What are the different classifications of risk? The first two classes of risk are objective and subjective. Objective risks signify the relative variation of an actual loss from the expected loss, which means it is measurable and useful in some risk concepts. Moreover, a subjective risk is present when a person's state of mind is different or uncertain. The person may have an uncertain mental condition in a given situation. The second set of risks clarified are the financial and non-financial risk. In financial risk, a monetary measurement or calculation may have applied, whereas non-financial risk involves risks that cannot be measured by monetary measures, like making decisions in a company. The third class of risk is pure and speculative risk. Pure risk encompasses two results, either a loss or no loss, which may appear unfavorable, like an injured employee that leaves the company due to a loss of manpower. A pure risk has some subordinates, such as personal risk and property risk, which includes direct loss, indirect loss, and liability risk. Speculative risk has two possible outcomes, which may be a gain or loss. This may apply in business, where the risk may have a gain or loss. The next two types of classified risk are static and dynamic. Dynamic risk consists of constant changes that are less predictable and less controllable. Static risk are opposite of dynamic risk, where the changes such as loss are predictable and controllable. The last two classes of risk are the fundamental and particular risk. Fundamental risk is caused by outside forces such as floods, earthquakes, or hurricanes, which are natural phenomena. It is out of control by many people but will greatly affect a large number of them. Particular risk refers to risk that will affect an individual directly, such as an auto accident in which the driver suffers fractures. What is a liability risk? Liability risk arises from the loss of property or a person, whether intentional or unintentional. In these instances, the person in conflict is obliged to shoulder the payment for the damage incurred. Liability risks are important for the following reasons. First, there is no maximum upper limit with respect to the amount of loss. This reason implies that any amount may be incurred given that obvious damage has been done. The complainer has the right to charge and ask for the total amount of the damage, whatever the amount may be. Second, although the experience is painful, you can afford to lose your present financial assets, but you can never afford to lose your future income and assets. It is imperative to lose financial assets since you need to settle the issues and cover all the expenses incurred for the damage incurred. Losing future income assets may have enduring effects and endanger your future financial capability. Finally, legal defense costs can be enormous. If you are sued and have no liability insurance, the cost of hiring an attorney to defend you and represent you in a court of law can be staggering. Liability insurance is useful when you have unintentionally caused property or person damage. A large sum will have to be sacrificed to settle the issue or criminal charges, leaving you in debt. There has to be an agreement made with the opposition in order to reduce the charges, since it is too costly to assign an attorney in the absence of liability insurance. So we are now through with how the identification of risk is done. Remember that this is the first step in risk management process. As according to Charles Tremper, the first step in the risk management process is to acknowledge the reality of risk. Denial is a common tactic that substitutes deliberate ignorance for thoughtful planning.